Lamb was slain because God knew that he had to put in a plan of redemption for you and I. So he was already thinking ahead, just like any, you think about a parent who has a child and they're thinking ahead. And when they think ahead for that child's future. So they're always looking ahead. And so God already knew that there would be some things that you and I would never be able to master on our own. He already knew that there would be some things that you and I would fail and fall at over and over and over again. And because of that, he said, I'm going to send my son to redeem them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send him in advance because guess what? I'm planning for their future. Because he's planning for our future. He has a divine purpose that you and I would walk some things out. I couldn't help but to think how good God is in spite of our defects. I couldn't help but to think how good God is in spite of how, you understand, we get off point at times. You understand what I'm talking about. I couldn't help but to think how good God is when we mess up. What he does is in a potter's hand is he begins to make us over to something that is beautiful and likable to him. And so here we see that God changes his mind, amen, because Israel over and over and over again, we see where the Lord had brought them out of bondage.
Yeah.
We see where he had brought them out of the hand of the enemy, and every time they would go into captivity, it was God's doing. He did it because guess what? He really wanted them to cry out to him. So he allowed their enemies to overtake them because we both know that when trouble comes, we begin to cry out to God. And so usually when things are going well, you understand, we're not as prone to seek the face of God. We're not as prone, amen, to run into his presence. But when trouble comes, when the potter allows the heat to rise upon the clay's back, then the clay begins to become pliable in the master's hands. And so what happened is, we see that Israel has been going through over and over and over again. God has called them as his holy and chosen people. He's gifted them. Their enemies, he said, and guess what? Those that curse you, I'm going to curse. Those that bless you, I'm going to bless you. You're going to be a blessing to many people. And so because they were his chosen people, amen, over and over again, he has changed his mind because so often he said they just hard-headed, they stiff-necked, they're rebellious, they don't listen, but I love them, I picked them, I've chosen them. You understand? It's like being you were chosen without a choice. We didn't ask to be chosen, but God said because of my son and because of what I placed on the inside of you, I've chosen you without a choice. You don't have a choice in the matter, but to eventually get back on the wheel so my WILL can be protected in your life.
Come on, Pastor.
And so here we see the great God of Israel, the one who didn't need anybody's help when he created anything. You understand? But yet the God of the universe called upon you and I to be co-laborers with him. He asked you and I to help him out, you understand, in his business. He wants you and I to help to bring forth glory in the earth. He's given us legal access to the throne room, and he's given you and I, amen, the power and the authority to decree things in the earth that they might be established. Remember, we talked about living that quality life in God's kingdom. So he has given us legal access. He's given us the authority, delegated authority, amen, to move and to operate in the earth. And so here we have God changing his mind again because really what he could have done was just smash all of the pots. He could have smashed every pot and said, you know what, I ain't even going to deal with those pots right there. You understand? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create and make something all over again. But in God's infinite wisdom and his love for you and I, it causes him to sit back and change his mind. And when he changes his mind, it's for our good. I'm so glad that God changed his mind about me. Are you glad that God changes his mind when you think about some of the places you frequented, when you think about some of the things you've done, when you think about how faithful you understand you haven't always been, when you think about it's not a consistency sometimes in your walk, sometimes you're walking all right, and sometimes you zigzag, sometimes you're crooked, and sometimes you make a U-turn, sometimes you fall in a pit, but at the same time, God is faithful. At the same time, God is faithful. And so here we see the God of Israel, amen, and he tells Jeremiah, he says, look, arise and go down to the potter's house. He said that when you get there, I'm going to announce my words to you. And so, beloved, amen, if we have to give a title to this text, it's messed up, but in the potter's hand. hands. Amen. And it's good to be messed up, but in God's hands. So some folks are messed up and they're not in God's hands. You understand? But God has a desire to make you and I over and over again, not to our liking, not to the liking of men, not to the liking of what we think we ought to be, but to his liking, because he has a purpose and a destiny for each and every one of us, which is different.
Yes, that's right.
And because it's different, amen, the process for each of us will be different. But what happens is, oftentimes, is that we don't want to go through the process. We don't want to go through some of the things that occur in our lives. And what happens is, when trouble begins to hit, and when difficulties come, and when folks, you understand, don't treat us like we think we ought to be treated, because you understand, they misunderstand our presence as being a presence in their lives. And so what happens is, we fall off the wheel, and we tell God, I don't want no more parts of this. I don't want to be bothered anymore. And because of that, God says, how can the clay tell the potter what it's going to be? How can the clay tell the potter what it's not going to do? How can the clay tell the potter where they're going to go no more? And so here we have God changing his mind, because he says, my purpose and my intent is that you flow and you operate in me. I'm really looking for an available vessel that I can put my glory in, and I can move legally in the earth.
Yes.
Woo! And so God changes his mind not to destroy us,